welcome to this edition of 10 in 10, where we look at 10 education technology topics in 10 minutes. So you only have to give us 10 minutes of your time to learn 10 things. And today we're looking at that topic right there, which is 10 signs that you're in a 21st century classroom. Now, this also might be extended to a school, 10 signs that you're in a 21st century school or a 21st century district. Now, this was actually inspired by an article in EdTech Review by Sayoma Saxena, and I want to thank her for doing that. And this is a good example of you can find lots of information and share on the internet. And so this EdTech Review article inspired this presentation. So let's look at that first way that you can tell you're in a 21st century classroom. Collaborative learning. That means everybody's working together to learn something. And so I have this here, I use this picture as an example because collaborative learning doesn't necessarily just have to be students, it can also be teachers as well. So you can have a collaborative learning environment with teachers and students, and it doesn't have to just use technology. You know, you can have a collaborative learning, get rid of that sage on the stage kind of thing and share that learning with everybody. So collaborative learning, that's the first sign that you're in a 21st century learning environment. The next sign that you're in a 21st century learning environment is performance-based assessments. And what that means is the assessments that we do with the students aren't just pen, paper, check off, multiple choice kind of things. It's actually having students do something to show that they've learned. Now, we in education have been using performance-based assessments a lot in things like music and art and sports, where students actually have to do something. They also do it a lot in career and technology education, but we don't do it so much in math and science and things like that. And so we can actually move to all performance-based assessments if we want to. I know we're not going to, but that's another sign that you're in a 21st century classroom. The next one is where students become responsible for their learning. So what does that mean? What does it mean that students are responsible for their learning? That means that everything isn't just being spoon-fed to the students by the teacher. The students are actually out there finding more information on their own. They're actually constructing knowledge on their own. They're actually going out and being responsible. Like it says, they're responsible for their learning. The teacher, of course, is making sure that the students are actually learning something, but in a 21st century classroom, the students are actually constructing knowledge based on what they go out and find. So students being responsible for their own learning, that's another sign. Mutual respect. That's something that we all want to have at every campus and we want to do, and that's respect not only from teachers to students, but students to teachers as well. Everyone has respect, everyone's opinions are valid. We don't, that goes back to things like we don't bully, and that's something that is really big in our schools right now, is that we don't have that bullying kind of thing, which is so ridiculous. And the kids show respect to each other, the kids show respect to the teachers, and then teachers also show respect down to the students as well. So respect, mutual respect, another sign of a 21st century classroom. The next one is students follow the rules and procedures. Now, I know that you think that, man, that's just so obvious. But what we mean by students following the rules and procedures is that the rules and procedures are very, very obvious to the students. It's not something that the rules are made up on the fly and the rules are different for one student than they are for other students, or for one class to another students, that the students know exactly what the rules are and what they're expected to do. And the picture I put up here, rules for teacher, that was kind of neat. I found that online and I thought, well, that's kind of neat that we actually have rules for teachers as well. So students know the rules and they follow the procedures because those rules and procedures are very laid out for them. There's no ambiguity about what's right and wrong in the classroom. All right, an inviting environment. What makes a student want to come to class? One of the things that a lot of research is showing right now is something called the third teacher, where the environment that students are learning in is just as important as what the students are learning in that environment. Is the class an inviting place? Is the school an inviting place? Do you want to go to school every day? Do you want to walk into that classroom every day? That's one of the things that a 21st century school and classroom has. It's an inviting environment. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to redo your whole school just to make it some kind of 21st century thing, but there are tricks that you can learn to make your school and make your class a little bit more inviting. I suggest you read a book called The Third Teacher, which talks about making your school a more inviting environment. Next one is adaptive learning. This is a great cartoon that was done way back in the late 1800s, I think, when they talked about what school was going to be like in the year 2000. But what adaptive learning means is that students that learn specific ways are given assignments that match their learning style. So we're adapting the learning to the students instead of the students having to adapt their learning to the teacher. For years and years and years, it's always been the students have to adapt to the teacher's way of teaching, and 21st century way says that the teacher has to adapt to the student's way of learning. That doesn't mean you have to change all your lesson plans, you have to change everything that you're doing, but it does mean you have to be cognizant that students learn in different ways and are inspired by different things. Their passions are different. So not everybody is inspired by a textbook, not everybody is inspired by a lecture, and that kind of goes back to Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. So adaptive learning, one of the ideas. Another one is active learning. Active learning is where students are actually way involved in the learning. Instead of sitting and getting, they're actually part of that learning process. You know, I'm an old science teacher, and so that's one of my favorite things is that those labs was where students were actually performing, they're actually digging in, they're actually dissecting things, they're actually mixing things together. Active learning, where the students are actually participating in the learning instead of just sitting at a desk getting the learning. So that's what active learning means. Next one is a school that has connected devices. You know, it's almost becoming an obvious thing that everyone needs to have a connected device to the internet so that we can get information. We no longer have to run down to the library for information like we used to in the old days. We don't have to run over to the set of encyclopedias to find out information. We actually have a device that can look up almost anything that we want to find out. And so access to connected devices. Doesn't necessarily mean that students all have a connected device, but it means that students can access a connected device. So you can have a set of iPads for the whole classroom or 4 or 5 laptops for the whole classroom. Those are connected devices. Okay. Our next one is one that I really like, is that it's a student-based class. And what that means is that the learning revolves around the student instead of the learning revolving around the teacher. The things that the students are doing mean something. You know, we talk a lot about rigor and relevance, and that's what student-based classes are. The students actually can see that what they're doing applies to their everyday life, applies to their real life. That's what student-based classes are. Those classes are for the students instead of for the teacher. So that's what a student-based class. Okay, so let's look at those 10 signs that you're in a 21st century classroom. Collaborative learning, everybody's working together to learn. Performance-based assessments, it's not just a pen, paper, multiple choice type of assessment. Students are actually creating something. Students are responsible for their learning. Students actually are going out learning on their own. They become responsible for their learning. It's not just all teacher-driven. Mutual respect. Everyone's opinion is important. Everybody's ideas are important. No bullying about, your idea is dumb or something like that. Everybody has mutual respect for each other. Everybody knows the rules and procedures. It's an inviting environment. Everybody wants to come in. There's adaptive learning. We adapt the learning for the student. Connected devices. Everybody has connections to the devices. We have student-based learning. And finally, we have active learning. Those are the 10 signs that you're in a 21st century classroom. That's 10 at 10. We made it.